The room fell quiet as the large screen showed another star system burning. 12 worlds lost in just 1 month. The Galactic Council members sat frozen, watching the red flames spread across the map. Admiral Ko gripped the edge of the table. His skin, usually a healthy blue, now looked pale in the dim light. For 300 years he had served the Austrian Republic, but never had he seen such destruction. "The Zelnar weapons are too powerful," he said. His voice was steady even, though his heart raced with fear. "Our ships cannot block their dark energy attacks. When they fire, our shields fail in seconds." Around the circular table sat 50 representatives from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed water, others breathed gases no human could survive. Yet all shared the same look of dread. Councillor Sun stood up. Though small compared to the other aliens, her presence filled the room. Her forearms were stiff with anger, and her voice cut through the silence. "The Confederation has lasted 10,000 years. We have faced wars, plagues, and cosmic disasters. We will not fall to these Zelnar monsters." Minister Yoon, with his long neck and 3 eyes, shook his head slowly. "But what can we do? Their ships outnumber ours 5 to 1. Their weapons burn through our strongest metals. Even our fastest ships cannot escape them." The hologram changed to show the latest attack. The planet Nabus 4, once home to billions, now wrapped in fire. As they watched, the planet's oceans boiled away. Its cities turned to ash, its people. No one wanted to think about the people. "Where will the Zelnar strike next?" asked a voice from the back. Admiral Ko touched his control panel and the map zoomed out. "Their fleet moves toward the Proxima sector. We have evacuated 3 worlds already, but the refugee ships are running out of safe places to go." On the screen, thousands of small dots showed the refugee ships, packed with frightened families, searching for shelter. Each dot represented tens of thousands of lives. "We should surrender," said one counselor, his voice barely a whisper. "Never!" Councillor Sun slammed all 4 of her hands on the table. "The Zelnar do not accept surrender. They burn worlds for pleasure. They collect the ashes as trophies." The council erupted in argument. Some wanted to fight to the last ship. Others wanted to hide in the far reaches of space. Still others suggested a final, desperate attack on the Zelnar homeworld. As the shouting grew louder, a young officer rushed into the chamber. He ran to Admiral Ko and whispered in his ear. Ko's eyes widened. He raised his hand, and the room gradually fell silent. "We have detected a ship," he said, "approaching from Sector 17. Minister Yoon frowned. "Sector 17? There. Are no inhabited worlds there?" "No worlds that we know of," corrected Councillor Sun. "What kind of ship?" Admiral Ko touched his panel again. The hologram changed to show a vessel unlike any they had seen before. It was smaller than their battleships, but larger than their scouts. Its design was strange, all sharp angles and flat surfaces, not the smooth curves preferred by most spacefaring races. "It does not match any known design in our database," Ko said. "And it is broadcasting a message on all frequencies." "A message?" Councillor Sun moved closer to the hologram. "Play it." The chamber filled with a calm, steady voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Park of the HSS Defiant. We have been monitoring your situation from our position beyond your mapped territory. We are here to help." Silence fell again, but different from before. Not the silence of fear, but of confusion. "HSS?" asked Minister Yoon. "What species designation is that?" Admiral Ko checked his data pad. His hands trembled slightly. "The signal originates from a planet called Earth. The H stands for human." Murmurs spread through the council. Earth was known to them, but only as a primitive world, still struggling with its first steps into space. The Confederation's policy was to avoid contact with such young species until they developed faster-than-light travel on their own. "Impossible," said Minister Yoon. "The humans have barely reached their own moon. They could not have built such a ship." "Apparently," said Councillor Sun with a small smile, "there is much we do not know about humans." The hologram zoomed in on the approaching ship. Now they could see markings on its hull, symbols in an Earth language, and an emblem showing a blue and green planet. "What should we do?" asked one of the councillors. "Can we trust them? One ship cannot stand against the Zelnar fleet." Admiral Ko straightened his uniform. "We have little choice," The Zelnar will reach Proxima Station in 3 days. Every other ship is evacuating civilians or defending key worlds. Counselor Sun nodded. Send them coordinates to dock at Proxima Station. If the humans wish to help, we will not turn them away. As the council members left to prepare, Admiral Ko stayed behind, staring at the image of the human ship. One vessel, against an empire that had burned 12 worlds in a month. What could the humans possibly do that the combined might of the Confederation could not? The HSS Defiant moved slowly toward Proxima Station. The human ship looked small next to the giant Confederation vessels. Workers and soldiers stopped to watch as the strange craft approached the docking bay. Through the large viewing windows of the station, aliens of many kinds gathered. Some had scales, others had fur. Some had 2 eyes, others had 6. All of them stared at the human ship with wonder and doubt. "Can that tiny thing really help us?" asked a tall 4-armed engineer. "It looks like a toy next to our battleships," said another. Admiral Ko watched from the command center. The station's scanners tried to study the human vessel, but something blocked them. "Interesting," he said. "Their hull absorbs our scans. We cannot see what powers their ship or what weapons they carry." The Defiant finally docked with a soft hiss of airlocks connecting. The station shook slightly as the ships linked together. Diplomatic Officer Tay waited at the entrance. He had studied Earth from afar for years, but had never met a human. His skin was light purple, and his 3 eyes blinked nervously as the airlock door began to open. Captain Park stepped through first. She was shorter than Tay expected. Her black hair was cut short, and her uniform was dark blue with silver buttons. 5 more humans followed her, each wearing the same uniform. Tay bowed slightly, following Earth custom from his research. "Welcome to Proxima Station, Captain Park. I am Diplomatic Officer Tay." Captain Park returned the bow. "Thank you for allowing us to dock." Tay led the humans through the station. Aliens moved aside to let them pass, whispering among themselves. "Is that what a human looks like? They seem so fragile. How can they help against the Zelnar?" Captain Park ignored the whispers. She walked with confidence, looking straight ahead. Her crew followed close behind, their eyes taking in everything around them. They reached the meeting room where Admiral Ko and Counselor Sun waited. The room had a large window showing the stars and, in the distance, the faint red glow of another burning world. "The Zelnar destroyed Telos 7 this morning," Admiral Ko said. His voice was heavy with sadness. 8 billion lives lost. Captain Park's face showed no emotion. "We know. We monitored the attack from a distance." "You were watching and did nothing?" Counselor Sun asked sharply. "We were assessing the enemy's capabilities," Park replied calmly. "We needed to understand what we face." Tay stepped forward. "Captain Park, while we appreciate your offer of help, this conflict is far beyond the capability of a single vessel." He spoke carefully, trying not to offend. "Especially from Earth, a world we've observed, but deemed pre-spacefaring." Several aliens in the room nodded in agreement. "Your fastest ships can barely reach your own moon," said one official. "How could you build something that travels between stars?" Captain Park smiled slightly. "Your observations were incomplete. Humanity has learned to hide its true nature. We've been watching the stars for centuries." The room fell silent. "Impossible," Admiral Ko said finally. "Our monitoring stations would have detected your signals." "Not if we didn't want you to," said one of the human crew members. Captain Park nodded. "Humans discovered early that the galaxy contains many dangers. We chose to watch and learn before revealing ourselves." Tay studied her face, trying to understand. "Why would you come now? Why risk everything to help us?" "Because that's what humans do," Park replied. "We appear when needed most." Counselor Sun moved closer to the humans. "A noble sentiment, Captain, but the Zelnar fleet has over 300 warships. Each one carries weapons that can crack a planet's crust. What can your single vessel do against such power?" Captain Park walked to the window. She looked out at the stars for a long moment. "May I show you something?" she asked. Admiral Ko nodded. Park touched a device on her wrist. "Defiant. Activate main defense system for demonstration." Outside, the human ship began to glow. At first, it was just a faint blue light around the hull. Then the light spread, forming a bubble that grew larger and larger. Within minutes, the shield had expanded to cover not just the ship, but the entire docking bay. The aliens stared in shock. "That's impossible," whispered Admiral Coe. "A shield. That size would require the power of a small sun." "We have efficient power sources," Park said simply. Tay looked at the human captain with new eyes. "What else can your ship do?" "Many things," she answered. "But more importantly, we understand how the Zelnar weapons work. We've faced similar technology before." "Before?" Tay asked. "When?" "Long ago," Park said, her eyes distant for a moment. "In a war we don't speak of." She turned to face the room full of aliens. "The Zelnar will arrive in 2 days. We don't have time for more questions. We need to prepare." For the first time in weeks, Tay felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Commander Jin could not believe what he was hearing. The tall, grey-skinned alien paced around the tactical room, his forearms moving in frustrated gestures. The holographic map in the center showed the Proxima system, with red dots marking the approaching Zelnar fleet. "How your plan is madness," Jin said, stopping to stare at Captain Park. "Position your single ship at the gravitational key point. The Zelnar fleet will destroy you instantly." The other Confederation officers nodded in agreement. Admiral Coe stood silently in the corner, watching the human captain closely. Captain Park pointed to the map. "This narrow point between these two moons creates a natural funnel. The Zelnar ships will have to slow down and line up to pass through it." "We know this," Jin said impatiently. "That is why we plan to avoid that area completely. Any ship caught there would be trapped. Or," Park said with a slight smile, "any ship positioned there could force a confrontation on its own terms." The human crew of the Defiant stood behind their captain. They seemed calm despite the danger they faced. One of them stepped forward with a small device and placed it on the table. It projected images of ancient Earth battles, ships in narrow water passages, soldiers in mountain passes. "Human history is full of smaller forces defeating larger ones," Captain Park explained. "We call it a bottleneck strategy. At Thermopylae, 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands. At Salamis, a smaller fleet defeated a larger one by choosing the right location." Jin looked unimpressed. "These are primitive battles with primitive weapons. The Zelnar have technology that can burn planets. And our shields are designed differently than yours," Park replied. "We don't try to block energy. We absorb it." Admiral Coe finally spoke. "You're asking us to trust the fate of the Confederation to one ship and an untested strategy." "I'm asking you to give us a chance," Park said. "Position your remaining ships behind the third moon. If we fail, you can still retreat. If we succeed, you'll be perfectly placed to attack." After hours of debate, the plan was reluctantly approved. The Confederation officers watched nervously as the Defiant moved into position at the gravitational key point between the two moons. The small human ship looked terribly alone against the blackness of space. Inside the Defiant, Captain Park sat in the command chair. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and preparing for battle. "All shields at maximum," reported the first officer. "Energy absorption systems ready. Weapons charged," said another crew member. "Though I doubt they'll do much against 20 warships," Park nodded. "We don't need to destroy them all, we just need to hold them long enough." The ship's sensors beeped loudly. On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open as the Zelnar fleet arrived. Their ships were massive, with dark hulls that seemed to swallow light. Each one was shaped like a blade, sharp and threatening. "They've spotted us," said the sensor officer. "They're adjusting course to pass through the key point." "Captain." Park leaned forward in her chair. "Just as we predicted. They're too confident to go around." From the command center of Proxima Station, Commander Jin watched the scene unfold. The Zelnar ships approached the key point where the Defiant waited. Just as Park had said, they had to slow down and line up to pass between the moons. "They're laughing at us," Admiral Coe said softly. "One ship challenging their entire fleet." The lead Zelnar vessel fired first. A beam of dark energy shot across space and struck the Defiant directly. Jin held his breath, expecting to see the human ship explode. Instead, something unexpected happened. As the dark energy beam hit the Defiant, its shields glowed blue. The energy seemed to spread across the shield surface, then fade away. "They missed," Jin asked, confused. No, Admiral Ko said, leaning closer to the screen. The Defiant absorbed the hit. More Zelnar ships fired. The space around the keypoint lit up with dark energy beams, all targeting the single human vessel. Each time the Defiant's shields glowed brighter but held. Then something even more surprising happened. The Defiant's hull began to pulse with the absorbed energy. Small ports opened along its sides. They're returning fire, Jin said in disbelief. The energy that had been absorbed now shot back out from the Defiant, not as wild beams, but as focused bursts. Each one struck a Zelnar ship with deadly accuracy. 2 enemy vessels exploded immediately. A third spun out of control, crashing into a fourth. Impossible, exclaimed Jin, staring at the tactical display. They're using the Zelnar's own energy against them. The remaining Zelnar ships tried to retreat, but in the narrow space between the moons they couldn't turn quickly. More absorbed energy fired from the Defiant, disabling 3 more enemy vessels. Admiral Ko turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet. Begin the counterattack now. From behind the third moon, the remaining Confederation ships emerged. They found a disorganized Zelnar fleet, half their ships damaged or destroyed, the others trying to escape the killing zone, created by one human vessel. The Defiant continued to hold the line, its shield somehow growing stronger with each attack. When a Zelnar ship tried to ram it in desperation, the human vessel simply moved aside with surprising speed, letting the enemy crash into the moon's surface. I don't understand, Jin said, watching the battle unfold. How can one ship do what our entire fleet could not? Admiral Ko shook his head slowly. Perhaps we have underestimated these humans, all of them. As the Confederation ships joined the fight, the tide of battle turned. For the first time since the war began, the Zelnar were retreating. The metal walls of the Zelnar ship were cold and dark. 5 humans moved quietly through the narrow corridor. Each step was careful. Each breath was controlled. They wore black, armor that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Lieutenant He moved at the front of the group. She held a small device in her hand. The screen showed moving dots that represented Zelnar soldiers. Most were running away from the humans toward escape pods. The humans had boarded the Zelnar command ship during the battle. While the Defiant held the attention of the enemy fleet, this small team slipped aboard the largest enemy vessel. Lieutenant He stopped and raised her hand. The other humans froze in place. Captain, we're approaching the command center, she whispered, checking her scanner again. 6 Zelnar inside. Captain Park nodded. She looked calm, as if boarding an enemy ship was something she did every day. Remember, we need their navigation data intact and we need the commander alive. The humans readied their weapons. Unlike the energy guns used by the Confederation, these were simple projectile weapons. The Zelnar shields were designed to stop energy beams, not solid bullets. 3, 2, 1, counted Lieutenant He. They burst through the door. The command center was large, with screens showing the battle outside. 6 Zelnar turned to face the humans. The aliens were tall, with scale-covered skin and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. The largest Zelnar, wearing armor with special markings, hissed at the humans. Earth vermin! How dare you board my ship? Commander Vex, surrender now, Captain Park said calmly. Your fleet is defeated. The Zelnar commander laughed, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. The Zelnar do not surrender. He raised a weapon, but before he could fire, Lieutenant He shot him in the arm. The bullet went through his scales and black blood dripped onto the floor. The other Zelnar tried to fight, but the humans were faster. In seconds, all the aliens were on the ground, wounded but alive. Captain Park walked to the main computer. She plugged in a small device and began downloading data. The screens flashed with star maps, fleet positions, and attack plans. The Zelnar are planning to attack 12 more systems, she said, reading the information. Their main fleet is gathering near their homeworld. Lieutenant He kept her weapon pointed at Commander Vex. The alien glared at her with hatred in his yellow eyes. How? He hissed. How did one small ship stop us? We burned worlds. We destroyed fleets. You'll have time to ask questions later, Lieutenant He said. 3 days later, the Galactic Council gathered again. The large chamber was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. This time, the mood was different. There was still Fear, but also something new. Hope. In the center of the room stood Commander Vex, his forearms bound with energy restraints. His scales had lost their shine, and his wounds were bandaged. Beside him stood Captain Park and Admiral Ko. "The Zelnar commander will answer your questions," Admiral Ko announced to the Council. "His ship's data has already revealed the positions of their remaining fleets." Councillor Sun leaned forward. "Commander Vex, why does the Zelnar Imperium burn our worlds? What do you want from us?" The Zelnar commander lifted his head proudly. "We burn because it is our right. The strong consume the weak. That is the law of the universe." His yellow eyes turned to Captain Park. "But I have a question of my own. How did one human ship change everything? We monitored your planet. You are primitives. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are basic. How did you defeat us?" The room fell silent, waiting for an answer. Admiral Ko studied the alien. "What makes humans dangerous isn't their technology, Commander Vex. It's their adaptability. And stubbornness," added Captain Park. She walked around the Zelnar, looking small next to his tall form. "We survived our own wars, our own near extinctions. We learned from each mistake instead of repeating it." "Impossible," Vex hissed. "No species changes so quickly." "Humans do," Lieutenant He said from her position by the door. "When we face a problem, we find a solution. When that solution fails, we find another. We never stop trying." Captain Park nodded. "When we saw how your dark energy weapons worked, we didn't try to build stronger shields to block them. We built systems to absorb the energy instead." "Your weapons became our power source," Lieutenant He added. "The more you attacked, the stronger we became." The council chambers buzzed with conversation as the aliens discussed this revelation. Many looked at the humans with new respect. These were not the primitives they had dismissed. Councillor Sun stood. "Captain Park, the Confederation owes you and your crew a great debt. But now we must ask, what is Earth's interest in this war? Why risk your ship and your lives for worlds you never knew existed?" Captain Park's face grew serious. "Because the Zelnar wouldn't have stopped with your worlds. Eventually, they would have found Earth. And humanity has a simple rule: the best defense is a good offense." She turned to face the Zelnar commander. "We came to help the Confederation, yes, but we also came to send a message to anyone who might threaten our home. Humans will not burn." The council chamber fell silent again. The message was clear. A new power had entered the galactic stage. 1,000 ships moved through space toward the Zelnar homeworld. At the front flew the HSS Defiant, its hull still showing damage from previous battles. Behind it came vessels from every corner of the Confederation, sleek Astrian cruisers, bulky Trell carriers, and the quick scout ships of the Luma people. The 3 weeks since the battle at Proxima Station, everything had changed. The Zelnar fleet was in retreat. The burning of worlds had stopped, and the name human was spoken with respect throughout the galaxy. Inside the Defiant, the crew prepared for what might be their final mission. Some checked weapons, others monitored the ship's unique energy-absorbing shields. In the command center, Lieutenant He studied the latest scans of the Zelnar defenses. "Their home system has 3 layers of defense stations," she reported. "Each one armed with the same dark energy weapons they use to burn our worlds." Captain Park nodded. She looked tired but determined. Small cuts on her face were still healing from the boarding action on the Zelnar command ship. "Gather everyone," she said. "I want to speak to the crew before we arrive." 10 minutes later, all 60 humans on the Defiant stood in the main hall. Some wore the same dark blue uniforms as Captain Park. Others wore the black armor of the boarding team. All looked to their captain with trust in their eyes. Captain Park stepped onto a small platform. She was not tall, but her presence filled the room. "In 1 hour we will reach the Zelnar homeworld," she began. "The Confederation expects us to lead the attack. They believe that only our ship can break through the Zelnar defenses." She paused, looking at each crew member in turn. "But today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. Not just warriors, though we excel at war when necessary, but builders, peacekeepers. We fight not because we love destruction, but because we value what can be built after." The crew looked confused. One raised his hand. "Captain, are we not attacking?" We are, Park replied, but not to destroy. Commander Vex gave us the access codes to their communication system. Before we reach their defenses, we will send a message directly to the Zelnar Overlord. Lieutenant He stepped forward. What message, Captain? The truth, said Park. That we could destroy them, but choose not to. That we offer peace instead, of vengeance. Some crew members frowned, others nodded in agreement. The Zelnar burned 12 worlds, one said. Shouldn't they pay for that? Captain Park's face grew sad. They will. But not with their own destruction. Justice without mercy is just another form of cruelty. An hour later, the combined fleet reached the edge of the Zelnar system. The massive defense stations powered up their weapons, ready to fire. On the Defiant's main screen, a countdown showed the minutes until they would be in firing range. Captain. Park sat in her command chair. Send the message, she ordered. Lieutenant He pressed a series of buttons. Message sent, Captain, using Commander Vex's codes to bypass their blocks. The bridge fell silent as they waited. The countdown continued, 5 minutes until the defense stations could fire. Suddenly the screen changed. A face appeared, older than Commander Vex, with scales that had faded from black to gray. 4 arms crossed over an armored chest. Yellow eyes stared out with suspicion and pride. I am Overlord Zan of the Zelnar Imperium, the alien said. You have breached our communications using stolen codes. This is your final violation. Captain Park stood. Overlord Zan, I am Captain Park of Earth. We lead the fleet that has defeated your forces at Proxima Station, Teller's Point and the Gorgon Nebula. We have the power to break through your defenses and reach your homeworld. The Overlord's eyes narrowed. Then why do you call instead of attack? Do you seek our surrender? The Zelnar do not surrender. No, Park said. I call to offer you peace. The Overlord looked surprised for the first time. Peace after we burned your allies' worlds? Yes, Park said simply. Because there has been enough destruction. Enough death. The cycle can end here today if you choose. 3 days later, Captain Park walked alone into the great hall of the Zelnar capital city. The room was huge, with high ceilings and walls, made of a strange black stone that seemed to absorb light. At the far end sat Overlord Zan on a throne, made from the same dark material. Guards lined the walls, each watching the small human with distrust. Captain Park stopped in the center of the hall and waited. The Overlord studied her for a long moment. When I agreed to this meeting, he said finally, I expected to face a conquering monster. Your fleet surrounds our world. Your weapons could burn our cities as we burned others. Captain Park nodded. We have that power. We choose not to use it. Why? The Overlord demanded. Because the true measure of strength is not in destruction, Park replied. It's in restraint, in building rather than burning. She placed a small device on the floor. It projected a document into the air between them. These are our terms. Your empire will return to its original borders. You will help rebuild the worlds you damaged. You will join the Confederation not as conquerors but as equals. The Overlord's yellow eyes widened. You offer us dignity, after all we did? Yes, Park said, because that is humanity's way. 6 months later on Earth, a small ship landed outside the United Nations building in New York. Admiral Coe and Counselor Sun stepped out, carrying an ornate box made of crystal and gold. World leaders gathered as the box was opened. Inside lay a document written in the languages of 50 different species. At the top, in large letters, was Earth's formal invitation to join the Galactic Confederation. The document bore a special notation at the bottom, for exceptional service in the preservation of galactic civilization. As the Earth representatives signed the document, Admiral Coe leaned close to Captain Park, who stood nearby in a formal uniform decorated with new medals. You know, he said quietly, many in the Council argued against inviting Earth to join us. They feared that a species so skilled at war might one day turn against the Confederation. What changed their minds? Park asked. The Zelnar, Coe replied. When your enemies speak in your favor, even the doubtful must listen. Captain Park smiled as she watched her world take its place among the stars. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as peacekeepers, as builders, as themselves.